Hello everyone, it's me, Juan54, back in video today. Yes, we are back. We're back and we're going to do another reaction video. And this time, Game Theory has dropped what everyone else has missed about the prototype. We're most likely now at the end of the prototype saga, which I would like to call that the prototype trilogy, I mean, like, the last two videos we talked with Game Theory about Poppy Playtime has all been about the prototype in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, the prototype saga, I suppose. But anyways, guys, you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a reaction. I got nothing else to say, so sit back, relax, let's go.
What is the prototype secret? Ever since the release of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, this is the question that everyone has been asking. And after several weeks and many whiteboards later, I believe I finally cracked it.
Alright, bet.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's been clawing at the prototype's door, begging for lore.
Let me in!
But today I say no more. I'm barging through like the juggernaut to reveal to all of you the answer to the biggest mystery of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. In our previous episodes, we've been putting the prototype under a microscope, looking at where their plan started and how it's going to end. The thing that I've yet to address is why. Why is the prototype doing all of this? I've actually teased at it a few times in previous episodes because the game has, as usual, been purposefully coy about the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
referring
definitely.
to it as the secrets. You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. The trouble is, knowing there is a secret isn't really satisfying in and of itself. No, we theorists need to know what this secret is. Otherwise, we have no way of knowing what the prototype's true goal is. Why he was willing to work with Harley again despite being infamously tortured by him, and why our traitor sidekick Poppy is so important to everything. Well, dear theorists, I can say
it has to be some.
weeks of research.
What do you think? What do you guys think it's about? I feel like it's probably getting a body back. Like, throughout the many months we had with Poppy Playtime, we've always been speculating that it's to get the body back, because like I'm not sure. I mean, like, look, I'm not saying that all the other toys got a better fate, right? But at the least they can see, they can walk around. With the prototype, that's gotta suck. With the prototype, like, how does he know where to walk? Like, how does he deliberately see? Like, how does he see? How does he do it? Like, he's just a hand. He's just a walking hand walking around. Like, how? So I mean, like, I feel like getting a body is what he needs. And Dr. Sawyer being, well, Dr. Sawyer, he'll probably know how to make the body. But I'm interested to see what's the theory is about.
Into parts of the game no one ever expected us to look at, I believe I figured out exactly what the secret is. And it not only answers everything I've already mentioned, but it also, for the third time, gives us an explanation for the prototype's true identity. Fair warning though, this may be my most insane theory to date. Yes, even more than Shadow is a genie. But if you stick with me, I promise you there's method in the madness. So no more delays.
All right.
It's finally time for us to learn what this Playtime Co. secret truly is. We're first told about this secret on one of the VHS tapes called Time. We hear Harley Sawyer and the prototype going back and forth about an experiment they're doing and how Harley is failing to get results.
Your suggestion?
To produce the results.
Yeah.
When Harley asks for more resources from the lab, the prototype refuses. When Harley asks for more time, the prototype refuses. Doesn't really sound like you're setting the guy up for success there, 1006. Did Playtime Co. not offer any managerial training? Now, who am I kidding? This is the company that decided flesh-eating toys made of children was a good idea. Anyway, Harley and the prototype are purposefully being obtuse when it comes to saying what the secret is. They do give away a few details in the conversation to give us a head start. Firstly, Harley has convinced the prototype that he is the only one with a chance of helping him with this project, whatever it may be. Harley was the head of
literally making the body, I believe,
behind the Bigger Bodies initiative. So for him to be the best shot of figuring out the secret, it's clearly something that needs his genius, likely some kind of scientific experiment. It's also clear that this isn't the same kind of experiment he was doing with the Bigger Bodies. Harley has done hundreds of those
Yeah.
he doesn't know the answer to cracking this secret. That being said, that doesn't mean it isn't somewhat related. Labs will give me labs access. That is out of the question. Harley isn't allowed in the labs, which Poppy has told us is where the orphans are being kept.
The orphans weren't killed during the hour of Joey. They're below.
Taken.
In the labs. The prototype's home.
The prototype.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm still like, I know a lot of people are gonna say, well, actually, it's been explained that the poppy flower is what keeps them alive. But I mean, like, sure, but I mean, like, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm still wondering, like, with the whole reveal that the orphans that are still trapped in the lab, like, does that, like, does that ruin the whole experience with Poppy Playtime for anyone? Because I've seen a lot of people saying that the whole reveal of Poppy, that chapter 5 is us trying to save the orphans from the lab, just kind of ruins everything in a sense. Because, like, now it's like, where did that came from? Like, why does the prototype need these kids? Like, why keep them alive? I thought that the hour of joy, I thought it means everyone goes down. But I don't know. I'm some people are saying I'm talking nonsense right now, but it's like, do people think that, I don't know, like, leave in the comment section below if you guys think that, the whole reveal that the orphans are in the lab and we have to do that in chapter 5 ruins the story for Poppy Playtime, or you think it didn't affect it badly. Anyways, let's continue.
Has been portrayed as the guardian of the orphans since the chapter 3 ARG, and so him not wanting to let Harley near there makes a lot of sense. He doesn't want Harley going back to his old ways and using the kids to middling results.
Uh-huh.
He then talks about not having many test subjects left, which implies that there is some kind of connection between the work Harley was doing for the bigger bodies and this secret, like humans are involved somehow. And the final detail we have is that, for some reason, there's a time crunch on figuring out the secrets. This makes me think it once again has something to do with the orphans, who have supposedly been sleeping for 10 years. Maybe they're about to wake up, or maybe they're slowly dying. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Regardless, we have our initial base of options. So this VHS tape isn't the only thing pointing us towards
I just
the
feel
answer.
like,
at the end of the game, we are trapped inside the ventilator.
I just feel like that's the case. Like, I don't know, man. Like, why are there kids under the lab still? Like, why are the orphans, like, stuck in the lab, and why do we have to save them? Like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to say, like, yeah, screw the orphans, let's get out of here, like, let them be, okay? I'm saving myself. But it's like, how? Why? I don't know, like, okay, say the poppy flower does keep, like, the kids being like 10 years old, or leave them unaging, sure, but that's not gonna stop the whole, ramifications of what happens if a body doesn't wake up, like your brain's gonna turn off and all that. I'm just saying.
System alongside Poppy and Kissy Missy. Ollie then calls us on the phone, revealing themselves to be the prototype. During this exchange, he doesn't mention the secret specifically, but he does give us a bit more insight into another one of his mysterious motivations: his obsession with Poppy. Always been a you and what we are. That's not a truth that can be brought away. No, not when it can mean so much more. The
Okay.
emphasis is on what 1006 and Poppy physically are, and that it can mean a lot for other people. Immediately, my mind went to what we saw from Poppy's cut lines in chapter 2.
Being able to exist as a doll, it has killed so many people.
Okay.
If it's just that they are living toys, Harley mostly already figured that out. And why wouldn't he have mentioned Kissy, Huggy, all the hundreds of other toys? No,
Yeah.
there's something different about their existence specifically, and we aren't the only ones wondering about what that is. In both chapter 3 and 4, we learn that 1006 and Poppy are being studied by Harley and his team. I learn something new about you every day.
It's been weeks and weeks of taking things out and putting them back in, and taking things out and putting them back in.
He was trying to figure out what made them tick, what made them different, but he wasn't able to replicate them.
Okay.
He had some successes, but there was still more he could learn from them, almost like he hadn't truly figured out the secret to their existence. And with there being an implication that the secret is in some way related to the experiments going on at Playtime Co., I feel like our answer has to lie with these two characters.
All
so
right.
what do we know about them that's different from every other toy? Honestly, not a lot. The prototype
They can
is
talk?
being kept
No,
purposely mysterious to the point that we've only ever seen an arm and
No. Why did I say... What do I mean, like, they can talk? Mommy Longlegs can talk. Miss Longlegs can talk. I don't know. Like, does people feel weird saying Mommy Longlegs? I don't know. Like, Miss Longlegs just, you know, she can talk. So, that's about it. I think it's because I think Poppy and the prototype remember what it was like when they were human, I think.
the shadow of some spider-like legs. The only real details we know about him is that while he's called the prototype, he wasn't truly considered a success by Harley. That honor went to Boxy Boo 154 experiments later.
Uh-huh.
The faster they, naturally, you have proven my bigger body's initiative a success.
We also know the prototype is incredibly intelligent, something
Yeah.
that they actually wanted to repress in future experiments.
Further suppression treatments will need to be enacted to ensure that no other experiments develop these qualities.
And thanks to the background text in the first trailer, we know that he has a digestive tract like all the other toys. But
Yeah.
he didn't require food to survive. All of those are interesting details, and Poppy does seem to share some of those characteristics, but I just couldn't figure out a way to connect them back to the secret that is supposed to mean so much more. Instead, let's try turning our attention to Poppy, because while she is arguably just as mysterious as the prototype, there's one big difference between her and all the other toys that stands out like a sore thumb: her creation. All the other experiments were created by Harley from kids who were raised inside the playcare, but Poppy was created from Elliot Ludwig's daughter, who died tragically in the 1960s.
In the 1960s, an unfortunate family...
Which I'm pretty sure they'll probably reveal what caused it in Chapter 5.
By Harley, but we believe by her own father, Elliot. From what we can tell, his approach seemed vastly different to the approach Harley took during the Bigger Bodies initiative. Harley is a neurosurgeon. We saw his credentials during the Chapter 4 ARG. His specialty is focused around the transferring of the brain, and therefore a person's consciousness, and reactivating it once it's in their new toy body. But the fact that even after thousands of attempts, they still couldn't recreate the perfection of Poppy, it's telling us that the way Harley is doing it isn't correct. So we've had no idea how Elliot actually made Poppy. That is, until now. While I was going back over all the evidence we've gathered over the last year of Poppy Playtime releases, I realized that there was a part of the Chapter 4 ARG I haven't really talked about.
What?
Maze. This was right near the end
What
of
do
the
you
ARG,
think
and
a good
in it
trick
we are shown a
sometimes
bunch
where
of
we
text
keep
on
something
screen
the
with
version's
hyperlinks
key.
that take us to new pages with new text and new hyperlinks. If you manage to get to the end of the maze, you were rewarded with the very important letter about Harley's removal from the Young Geniuses program. But that isn't the part I wanted to focus on. We've already talked that one to death on this channel. Instead, I took a look over the dozens and dozens of different text screens we got as part of the maze. They all appear to be from Harley Sawyer's perspective, usually talking about how you shouldn't be here or I can see you. Some even reflect questions the audience asked Harley during the ARG, like, do you ever look back upon your past in regret? These thoughts, they aren't mine. But as I went through them, there was one...
Oh, come on!
I want to engage the team with this dog.
Sorry about that, guys.
Aren't mine. But as I went through them, there was one in particular that stood out. Is it her? That's impossible. Severely understated. The organization of older established biological sciences like embryology. How did you get in here? The part of this that caught my attention
It called out her.
was this word, embryology. Embryology is a branch of animal biology that focuses on the prenatal development of sex cells, fertilization, and, as you may have guessed, embryos. This felt out of place given what we know about Playtime Co.'s experiments. Harley was using pre-existing brains and other vital body parts to create the toys. The science wasn't looking at things on a cellular level or from a developmental standpoint. However, this isn't the only time that this word comes up in the ARG. If you've seen our recent Poppy Brogard's timeline short, you may know where I'm going with this. And if you haven't, you should probably subscribe so you don't miss out on crucial lore drops like this. See if you can do it faster than I can summarize this short. Ready? Go! During the ARG, we learned about the now infamous theater incident via a zip folder that contained a number of photos of burnt items. Some were toys, one was a theater projector, but one
As you
Though if
deserve,
look
to be
closely,
honest.
the document he wrote on wasn't just any old document. It's actually an excerpt from a research paper, Unifying Biology, the Evolutionary Synthesis and Evolutionary Biology. Now, this paper was originally published in 1996, which breaks the timeline every which way from Sunday. But regardless, it is a very interesting read when considering what we've already been talking about.
Okay.
Time. Did you do it? Did you hit the subscribe button? Oh, you did. Huh, I need to up my game, give you guys a real challenge next time. But anyway,
Ha.
this paper discusses how science has approached evolutionary theories over the years, with the parts we're seeing from the theatre incident referencing how Darwin's natural selection theories and evolution in general were almost entirely abandoned by the scientific community at one point.
Dang.
Scientists at the time wanted to lean away from what they considered natural sciences and focus more on the newer, shinier, experimental sciences like embryology. Oh hey, there it is again. Basically, rather than just observing larger changes over long periods of time, you could do experiments on the cellular level of embryos, observe their development, and potentially alter their evolution through direct environmental factors. And all of this was
What?
happening, get this, during the 1930s. Exactly
On
when
the
Elliot
same
Ludwig
time.
founded Playtime Co. That, along with this being something that Harley had in his possession during his time in the Young Geniuses program, implies that this isn't a coincidence. This was the foundation of Elliot's scientific philosophy. Elliot was always keen on innovating the toy world, making poppies out of biological parts. Just instead of using parts from
I
rats
still
or
don't know
children,
why.
as we've all suspected, it looks like Elliot was trying to continue the expansion of evolutionary science, creating embryos that would develop and evolve into their toy bodies, allowing them to be fully working, functioning, living toys. He could even control their development to mean they wouldn't require food to survive. When Harley brings up embryology, it's because he remembers studying.
Okay. Sure. That's something interesting. I'm still trying to get over the fact that, okay, so Elliot Ludwig just happens to. Okay, so Elliot Ludwig just puts human organs in Poppy Playtime. I mean, on Poppy, and that we're just going to gloss over that. What? And now we're doing a cellular level with embryology. Okay, not gonna lie, this is interesting to say the least, but I'm gonna keep going.
It under Elliot. He knows that it's the only way this could be possible. But hang on, if Elliot's method is about creating and developing new life from embryos rather than stealing life from someone else,
Ha.
how is the Poppy we know Elliot's daughter? She died in the 1960s,
Yeah.
and yet this Poppy knows that Elliot is her father.
Uh-huh.
Here, Dad.
In the cut lines from chapter 2, she also seems to be aware of what exactly she is.
I am the cause. Being able to exist as a doll. It has killed so many people.
And when Harley asks, is it her, he follows up with, that's impossible. He's not referring to just any generic Poppy. Those weren't impossible, they were a dime a dozen, actually. He's referring to this very specific Poppy, Elliot's daughter. Her being alive, conscious, inside a Poppy doll, that should be impossible.
Yeah.
Elliot's embryological prowess. There has to be a part of this that we're missing, and indeed there is. Because as I looked more and more into embryology, there was one particular expansion in the field that I kept coming across. Cloning. Which I recognize sounds completely insane, but please...
Cloning? Oh, nah. What you talking about? Cloning. So what you... So you mean to tell me... You know what? No. I'm gonna listen to it. But I swear, if this is where it's going, where I think it's going, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm about to crash out.
Trust me, this actually ties everything together really nicely. Cloning is just embryology with a slight twist. Rather than going through the fertilization process, cloning works by putting an already developed cell nucleus inside an empty sex cell like an egg cell. At least this is how we got the first ever cloned animal, Dolly the sheep, back in 1996. The same year that evolutionary paper was published. From there, the cells divide into a viable embryo and then into whatever creature the cell originally came from. Because there's no fertilization, there's no mixing together of different DNA. Instead, it's identical DNA to the original donor. Elliot has mastered embryology and found ways to make embryos develop as he needed to create skeletons, organs, eyes, all within a toy body. So when his daughter was dying tragically in the 1960s, would it be unreasonable for him to use that knowledge to take her cells and put them into the embryos he was using to make the biological Poppy dolls, forcing it to develop more intelligence and personality so it could actually become his daughter rather than a generic living doll like the others, essentially negating the whole being dead thing. Now, in reality, cloning doesn't really transfer things like memories or
What?
personalities. That is known as the resurrection fallacy, and it's a bit of a misconception. Your memories and personality are products of your environment rather than your inherent nature and DNA.
Yeah.
It's a whole debate in and of itself that we're not going to go into today. However, it's possible that Mob is going down the more sci-fi route with this. I mean, we've got kids being turned into toys. What isn't sci-fi about this series? In many a sci-fi franchise, we've seen clones show up with their original memories intact. Heck, even Garten of Banban has been using this trope when it comes to making their mascots out of other people's DNA. This could very
But
well
still.
be what's happening in Poppy Playtime, with Elliot's daughter essentially continuing her existence as Poppy rather than this Poppy being an entirely new person just with the same DNA, which is then why she knows about what she is and who her father is. But at the start of all this, I said that the secret had to do with both Poppy and the prototype.
Yeah.
From what we can tell, Elliot didn't make the prototype, Harley did. So all this embryology stuff can't be the secret, right? Well, since I made that initial point, we've realized that Harley not only knew about Elliot's embryology, but was being trained in those same methods, and that he knew
Yeah,
exactly
because
what
Ludwig thinks it's a
was.
good
So,
idea to
looking at
bring this guy in. Oh, come on!
for this franchise, but we're gonna
Alright, we're back.
from a logical perspective, which may be rich for this franchise, but we're going to try anyway. If I'm
Okay.
Harley and I'm trying to recreate Poppy, the first thing I would do is attempt to do things how Elliot did them, using the Poppy flower and embryology to try and bring to life the first successful bigger body, a creature
Okay.
that evolved to fit and combine with its robotic body. Obviously, it wasn't a total success, which would eventually lead to Harley abandoning Elliot's methodology for his own, making
Okay.
the prototype completely different to the other living experiments and more similar to Poppy. But if Harley was following Elliot's methodology, that would mean he'd need a donor to make this biological clone from, someone whose life could be worth extending. Well, who better than the main man himself, Elliot? For a long time, we theorized that 1006 was actually Elliot Ludwig.
Yeah.
Both of them were incredibly intelligent and both cared deeply for the orphans.
Uh-huh.
Then Elliot was killed and turned into the prototype by Harley and the Playtime Co-executives for getting in their way. And during Chapter 4, we got these lines from the prototype that had the entire fandom feeling like this had to be the case.
Yes.
In the orientation notebook, PW talks about where Poppy is stored being a version of Elliot's home, where he and Poppy could spend time together. So the prototype telling her to come home felt really poignant. I just couldn't fully get behind it because of one piece of evidence that I pointed out in my first Poppy theory. There's a drawing in Elliot's office that is specifically addressed to Elliot. And with
Yeah.
the drawing containing Mummy Longlegs, and this thing had to have been drawn after her creation in 1991. That means he cannot be the prototype, as the Bigger Bodies experiments started in 1990, with experiments like 1188 being made that same year. 1006 comes before that, and so if it was Elliot, he'd have to be dead before this drawing was given to him. Now,
Dang.
I've seen people say that maybe the employees were just delivering stuff to his office despite the fact he was already dead. But the
Yeah.
issue I have there is that Elliot's death was incredibly public. We hear people on the radio talking about it in Chapter 3. If everyone knew he was dead, then no one was going to address a drawing to him. So he would have to still be alive in 1991, and therefore cannot be the prototype. This was the dilemma I faced for weeks.
Oh, please don't tell me it was my boy Rich.
Felt like so much was pointing towards Elliot being the prototype, but this one piece of evidence just couldn't let me justify it. But with our new ideas around embryology and cloning, we can have our cake and eat it too. Elliot can still be alive in 1991 to receive the drawing and hang it in his office, but he can also become the prototype with all of his scientific genius, able to build new scientific marvels, his intimate knowledge of Playtime Co. and its systems, and his memories of his daughter being Poppy. However, wouldn't this mean that 1006 already knows the secret? It's just Elliot's method of embryology. If 1006 has all of Elliot's memories, then he could just do it again without any issue. Except there is an issue. The issue is that even Elliot's method wasn't perfect. Remember, there is one more detail about this whole secret that's unaccounted for. They are running out of time.
Time is precisely what we do not have.
If Elliot had figured out the next step of evolution, developing embryos that would naturally
Then time wouldn't be an issue.
able to use cloning in order that someone could live on as a toy, he'd have still missed out on the one thing that hiatus, but it's usually when they're much closer to the end of their lives, like 10 or 11.
Dang.
Scientists figured out that the cloning process was causing her to age faster, and the numbers would seem to back that up. The sheep Dolly was cloned from was 6 years old at the time of cloning, meaning even though Dolly was a newborn, her cells were technically already 6 years old.
Dang.
This meant that at the age of 6, Dolly was actually 12, which is the end of a standard sheep life expectancy. Sure enough, Dolly developed tumors in her lungs at 6 years old.
Dang.
Her death. Even if a clone could keep all the memories of its past life, elongating that person's life or bringing them back from the grave, you're only delaying the inevitable. Death will still come for you eventually. That's the thing with life. No one makes it out alive.
Alright, come on, man.
I believe we're actually seeing this in Poppy Playtime. Many fans have been quick to point out that in each chapter, Poppy's eyes have begun to change. You could
Yeah.
chalk this up to the mob team just getting better as the chapters go on, finessing and improving the designs. But it isn't just that Poppy's design is getting more detailed. In each chapter, Poppy's eyes have become more bloodshot.
Oh yeah, I definitely saw that in chapter 1. I mean, chapter 4.
Way more than we saw in chapter 1, or even in the first Poppy VHS tape. Something has begun to change in Poppy. Her body is beginning to degrade. If she is a clone of Elliot's daughter from the 1960s, like we suspect, then she would be 50 years older than the child she was cloned from.
Dang.
Putting her close to her 60s, a point where humans begin to experience rapid changes in their molecules and microorganisms, which can lead to age-related diseases. And speaking of diseases, Elliot's daughter died tragically in the 1960s. Usually when it's tragic, it's unexpected, which could be
Yeah.
something like a car crash, looking at you, David, but it
Ha.
could also mean a sudden unexpected illness. And if that was the case, cloning her could mean that this version of Elliot's daughter, Poppy, would be susceptible to the same disease. She could be dying from the same thing she died from the first time.
Oh
Prototype
no.
could also be suffering with this issue. In one of our previous timelines, we've hypothesized that Elliot would have been around 28 in 1930 when he got divorced, because the average
Yeah,
age for a man
so
getting
he was
married
still
in the
relatively
1920s was
young.
around 25. By 1990, he would therefore have been 88 years old.
Dang.
He is definitely old, but not old enough that he couldn't feasibly still be working at the factory. However, if he was cloned to make the prototype, that newborn toy would have been 88 to begin with, meaning that
Dang.
by 2005, when the game takes place, while he's only 15 years old physically, his cells are really
Sorry, but that's crazy. So the prototype essentially physically was out for 15 years. In the cellular level, it's 103 years? That's crazy. That's insane.
Again, that is very old, but in 2021, there were nearly 90,000 people living across the US above the age of 100, so it's definitely possible. But if the prototype is aware of this, then he knows he's in the minority, and that he may not be long for this world if he doesn't find a way to perfect the process.
Time is precisely what we do not have.
That, my friends, is what the secret is. It's not just embryology. It's not just cloning. It's the method to achieve the next stage of evolution. Something that could, quote, mean so much more. Living forever. During the Chapter 4 ARG,
But
Elliot said
and
that
it's exactly
scientific
what
progress should always
indie
be to
villain would
benefit
want.
humanity. Finding a way to cheat death, to clone yourself and live inside an immortal toy body, avoiding the need for food or rest, also eliminating disease and aging? That sounds like the kind of scientific development that would benefit the entire human race. Harley also said that immortality was his driving force.
Mortality is the curse of the weak, fire that incinerates the flesh. Strive to snuff that flame.
And after all his time in the Young Geniuses program, I wonder where he got that from. He and Elliot may have had different approaches, but at the end of the day, they were both after the same thing. However, neither of them could figure out how to overcome the inevitable. Age and disease still haunt these quote-unquote immortal bodies. Both the prototype and Poppy are dying, which is why the prototype, Elliot, is in such a rush to figure out the secret. The secret to ridding aging and death from these embryos. The secret of eternal life. To save him, his daughter, and the world from death. And with our player character's scientific background and connection to this company's experiments, I wonder if we might end up being the ones to help him figure it out. If we don't, there may be no way to save Poppy. Although, she has betrayed us multiple times, so maybe that's for the best.
Ha.
Hey, that's just a theory. A game fit.
Okay, guys, that's the end of the video. So, what do I think? I will say this. It's great, right? It's great, but I'm not really sure. Like, so you mean to tell me that the prototype and Poppy, the ones that we've been theorizing over and over to be, to be Elliot's daughter and Elliot himself, just happen to be clones of the originals? I'm not sure. Like, okay, the science is there, and I can agree. If Poppy is dying, then maybe that's probably why Prototype is trying to bring her in. I don't know. I mean, the Prototype might remember that, hey, my daughter so happens to be a toy. And the toy is out there outside her case. So, at the very sense, okay, I can kind of see why the Prototype wants Poppy in her case. And I also noticed that with the red eyes, this is how Poppy been seeing a lot of red eyes, right? Right. And notice how it's just happening when she's out of her case. I'm thinking that, you know, Poppy being out of her case is a big no-no to the Prototype. Or maybe it was probably bound to happen even if she did stay in there. I don't know, man. Like, I'm pretty sure it's like, I don't think the case has any, supernatural properties, but I mean, like, neither is walking, talking toys with organs in them. So I don't know what I'm trying to say at this point. But I don't know if I can get behind the whole embryo cloning thing. Like, okay, the cloning bit feels like it's true. I mean, it's got to be true. I mean, they showed up the whole lamb, that whole poor little animal right there. So the science is there, but I don't know, guys. I don't know. I feel like I'm okay with the whole. Yeah, the Prototype is definitely Elliot Ludwig being converted and not just a clone. I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot more better. It makes more sense than just say that. But I mean, hey man, we're just gonna have to check it out on when Chapter 5 comes out, which would probably be in, I don't know, in 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. Anything could happen, really. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like the video so I know you guys enjoyed. Comment down below what you guys think about this video. Do you think the theory is solid, or you think it's a massive burp? To me, like, all I'm about to say is I like the theory. The science is there, but narratively, I would have preferred to be Elliot Ludwig has been converted to the Prototype. I'm okay with, you know, Harley Sawyer, backdoor Elliot and just convert him into the Prototype as some sort of divine punishment or the act of vengeance in his twisted world, and that Poppy happens to be, you know, Elliot's daughter being Poppy because Elliot is doing all he could to preserve his daughter's life. Which, I mean, like, hey, I still hate Elliot Ludwig, right? I still hate him. But I mean, like, doing what he can to preserve his loved one's life, I can't say it. I have to commemorate him. We would literally do anything to protect our loved ones, a daughter, a family member. I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying I respect Elliot Ludwig because look what the torture he's brought us, especially bringing Dr. Sawyer in here. But I can see the method on this one. And yeah, subscribe because we got a lot of videos coming up. I think the next video is gonna be, I don't know, maybe a two-parter and probably almost like a movie. But you're gonna have to subscribe to know if that's true. This is Juan Gamer 54 signing off.